Shall we start? Yeah. First of all, thank you very much for coming tonight to the after talk of the show Gangster Town. I'm really glad to have you guys here because you're all specialists in what you're talking about. Yeah, maybe just to give like an introduction or like a question for the start, like what did you like? Can you say what was like the most important part for you, like in the beginning of the piece?
For me, I found it very problematic. I have a pretty strong history of gangster. My background in sort of rap and hip hop has influenced my current practice, of course. And so when I hear gangster, I have so many associations. And for some reason, the red carpet for me just really, I thought that it was sort of ironic, like we've arrived, we're going to this place of luxury perhaps. But I've always associated gangster with sort of the desire to move beyond poverty and going, playing with difficult, violent ways in order to move away from poverty. And so I was very confused by it, to be honest. I thought the performance was great.
And what especially did you think was great?
The piano in particular, the music, the sort of the commitment to the sort of archetype, the musical and gangsta, all of these themes and sort of aesthetics are very familiar. But despite the performance being brilliant, it didn't work.
So you would say like this difference between the kind of two upper class.
Yes. It's almost as if it's like the point of view, it's the perspective, and like I see that there's sort of an intention to maybe play with these perspectives or make the perspective irrelevant. But that wasn't clear enough for me. And it's also like, if you associate yourself as a gangster, which I do, and I did, and in certain situations I can continue to be a gangster, which is empowering because it's from my past. I find it problematic when people play.
Yeah, especially. No, I mean in terms of the piano was great, but they had this kind of prepared piano thing, which is kind of, that kind of reference to like Cage and that whole New York school of the thing. But it was really this weird sort of this kind of elitist, almost European way of also dealing with, this New York culture, which on the one hand, gangster culture, which is sort of predominantly African American, I'd say, and this whole New York school surrounding John Cage that for me was very clearly referenced in the prepared piano part, which was sort of quite white on the most, and then sort of like people from a completely different culture, this European culture coming in and appropriating both those things, and just where it's different because there's a lot of appropriation of African American culture going on in the United States as well.
Which is why the deviation of the piano worked well for me, because it sort of it referenced the reality, and although they were playing with kind of the theater and the musical, I was I could read right away that there was a facade in the piano, in particular.
Excuse me at this point, because I think exactly at that moment when the piano phase was so prepared, there is this, it's in contradiction to the question or to the feeling of playing piano. And in this moment, it didn't work for me, because it was a contradiction on the material level, as the music was set, as a structure as a parameter structure, and so.
But it was beautiful. You can't argue with it.
And in that moment, I'm still searching for the words that bring it to a certain point, but this music in a way, it was set as a musical, which was quite radical because I really disliked this effect set. And on the other hand, it caused a kind of vacuum musical. It was not there. It was kind of sucking the musical part away. So I really still need to find words that show it clearly. But this contradiction in hearing musical and being a vacuum, producing a vacuum that is sucking these musical aspects out of it. This was working and it was not working at all. So this was the most interesting part for me.
And would you say that this has to do with how the light was set? Because I
Absolutely.
feel that the
Of
light
course.
was really important to that aesthetic.
Well, I think there could have been, there's a great potential there in having the lighting designer and the pianist be also, in the same. Are there questions from the audience?
Yeah. You want to say something?
Yeah. Maybe you can go to the next piece to talk.
Okay, so let's finish it.
No, I think there was a sort of an enormous potential in the lighting designer and the pianist being the same, being the same person. And somehow I was wondering, but for me it stayed on two separate levels the whole time. That was basically what I was wondering. Just recall what the second
Yeah,
piece
so if
says.
we, maybe we can actually continue from there to the next piece, which was called When Death Replaced Life. And the director was Nina, performer Jean-Marie, and light designer and dramaturg was Alice. I would like to focus on the middle part of the piece. And about the theme that it was about death, like when death replaces life. That's the title. And
This with the glasses?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, the one with the glasses and dance, basically. Yes, please.
Yeah, for me this was quite striking. I mean, the fragility of glass and the precariousness of moving through space and potentiality of glass breaking and this real danger, like the real element of danger was quite exciting for me. I could sort of tell that I questioned perhaps whether the performer was entirely comfortable in the context. I think as a performer myself, I can think that walking around a stage full of glass, I don't know if I would do that for the sake of anything. I don't want to cut myself. Yeah, I'm very practical.
I think that I have to say that I talked with the director and he said that there's a strong tradition of Buto in that piece.
Okay.
I think which is also clearly shown in the title point. And I think there's a big practice of how to control your body within extreme circumstances. So I think maybe that the performer was not in the danger in that case. But of course you cannot know what you have done with information.
Well, I thought for me the power of dance, is that it can transmit these kind of direct physical sensations as opposed to say musical theater piece. It's dance for me with the sense. I'm interested in it because it appeals to my mirror neurons. So I watch them going through glass and I feel it in my own body. This kind of, and so as opposed to the beginning and the end of the piece, which I thought were a little weak, I thought the middle of the piece was actually through the broken glass and through this kind of it really created something physically in me that I found quite unusual in the Slovak school of direction also.
Yeah, it was striking.
And this edge of real danger, and on this edge of experience through the perceiving of someone else moving with material that might be exactly dance, and I also see the title, which was really constructed through all these aspects happening on stage, and in the recipient. But I don't get how that can replace life, because I cannot think about life so in an ontological way when there is no death already inside the life aspect. So this is still this edge of really not being able to grasp this is also for me produced through this edge of this glass and this potential danger and cutting, but of the technique, which is also occurring as kind of magic then in that moment. This is interesting part of the clash.
Mm-hmm.
Was the performer injured at all in that performance?
As far as I know, no.
There seemed to be
I think
a moment in the middle where, you know,
they used special like imitation techniques during the production period. Yeah, really. Yeah. Sounds funny, but it is. Yeah.
what kind of techniques? I'm sorry.
Meditation.
Ah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I think the performer had like a really like defined practice in how to use the material. And yeah, there's this certain technique they used where if you know this technique when you go over like hot coal, and it's just like you use your body in a way that you touch the material, but it doesn't cut. Or if it cuts, it's such a slight cut that it doesn't even hurt.
I've actually done that before.
Ah,
I've walked through hot coals.
okay. Yeah, so you can.
And it hurts, it's hot, but you keep going.
Yeah.
And you survive and you go on. It is quite transformative, but the reality is that it's hot and that it hurts.
Okay.
But you can start like it.
Okay.
But yeah, then the pain lessens as you get used to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, maybe that's also like why they had this really long period of rehearsing before. Like, I mean, they rehearsed for like 3 years to perform the
Yeah.
piece. It was like a
Clearly,
long.
the performer had a lot of like.
It was very exemplary, but you could see the rigor.
And yeah, you can see the performer was very, very trained physically, and that's what it's gone through quite a process. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so let's come to our last piece. And maybe you remember the title. It was "Would You Die Tonight für Liebe?" And the director was John Marin, former Alice, and the light and dramaturgy was Nina. And I would like to emphasize, especially on the end, about this. Like, I would like to emphasize on the emptiness this end provided to the spectator. And especially because in that case the spectator were like children. So for me it was kind of irritating how at the end the children were like put to this object, this chair, to kind of feel that emptiness, to connect it with the title, which was about love. I have a lot of questions to it because I have to say I have children myself, and they were reacting. They would have been reacting really irritated on that.
I agree. I think that there was something very interesting in terms of the ethics, in terms of using children and having children being exposed to these strong themes of death and isolation. But sort of the radical person in me is like, I feel like children need to experience these things now versus later because they're ultimately going to experience them in their life, you know? And I know this is, I know that that's not a shared perspective, I realize that. But that's the thing that struck me the most about this piece was it provocated these situations where children had to deal with the idea of death. And children had to deal with the idea of being alone or isolation again. And it was very poetic. disturbing, but also quite strong.
Mhm. What do you think, like your children yourself, like, what do you think about it?
Well, yeah, I mean, I have also a bilingual child, trilingual child, in fact, so she would have understood the title, which I think was probably not the case for all, all of them. But yeah, I mean, I agree with introducing children to deconstructed ideas and postmodern art, as soon as possible. I think it's interesting because for all of us, it was more something, we came to, or for me at least, it was something I came to sort of after, sort of dealing a lot more with sort of representative art. Easier to understand in some way, and then, afterwards realizing, a chair can also, be something. And I think, what happens if people are exposed to that much, much earlier on. So.
And especially within the frame of love. The title and sort of the subtext that was happening, because it wasn't very literal, but the frame of it being about love, potentially.
Yeah, I didn't like the fan on the side of the stage. I thought that was sort of gratuitous.
For me, like
It was
the fan
just-
would be.
Yeah, I know. I just felt like there was already air in the space. It was not necessary to illustrate that.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's the children's piece. I mean, maybe people felt it was.
I don't know if it was a children's piece.
Yeah, I
And
want
there's
to
children
say.
in
For children. No, I believe it was kids. Oh, then we see they were interesting because some people saw children in it, some people saw it as being more conceived for children. What did you say?
But I saw children on stage.
Okay.
But not that I personally distinguishing between children and adults, but people with or without more or less experience. But those people have considered as children out of structure, and so this was a problematic part for me as well, because there's this huge danger of falling into this trap of using. Just the difference of experience they can have actually. And so in this moment when there came all this rule down, and all this red rule, and this child was alone on stage, and was totally buried under this rule, and it was not ending, and so I hope they are dealing with this in a very comfortable way, but it's not easy, I think.
Yeah, and in this sense, I would have to give a lot of credit to the director, because despite the potential danger of children and the implications of using children, there seemed to be a very strong vision, a very strong kind of frame, and I felt, even in these moments of kind of precarity, where the children or the personified person, whether it's an adult or a child, it's debatable. I felt very at ease. Like there's something about.
Yeah, for me it was also like, I have to say, even if it was really strong, and I think my children would have perceived it as a really strong image and also irritating, I think for me it was pretty much also representing this existentiality which actually is dominating a children's life. Like when I see my children, like there are always existential situations going on. Everything is existential, and I think it doesn't help like to only show children like the beautiful fairy tale side of life. I think it's really important, like also to mirror them their own fears and dangers which are going on all the time, and maybe it helps them even to digest. I have to say.
No, children are always into the the things that like in the fairy tales, they're always into the most gruesome parts.
Yeah.
I think they can handle a lot more than we can.
Yeah.
Absolutely clear. You just have to start listening to their own stories, then you absolutely know. Yeah. Agree.
Yeah. Okay, so I would say, I'm sorry if time's over. So
Those fast stories.
yeah, It was very, very good talking to you, very interesting. Thank you so much for coming and
Thank you.
sharing
Yeah,
your
yeah.
experiences.
Well, I think the curation of the festival, like all around, has been just kind of presenting a really wide range of.
Yeah.
Especially with this after talks and in between talks.
It's insightful.
Yeah. And I love the unisex bathrooms, that it's not like, like shit like men's bathroom, women's bathroom. It's where do people go who don't fit into the dividing?
Yeah.
That's what the symbols are.
That's what the symbol, exactly. The symbols are just like,
Yeah.
you go into, you just, you still have two bathrooms, but it's like you can go into either one.
Yeah, above gender
But,
construction.
I thought that was very, very
Yeah, that was
Progressive.
focused on the festival.
progressive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very progressive, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Totally.
Because we're
No, sure.